Well, hello and welcome. Thanks for joining me. This is Ros Jones, your business coach with my weekly podcast show, Bold Business Bits, coming to you from Yorkshire. This is where I have a great conversation with a phenomenal female business boss. We share some of the bold stuff they do, lessons they've learned, adversities they've overcome, and the fun they have. And then I'll be dipping into my toolkit and sharing a top tip. Business can be lonely, so make sure you join us each week and be part of our show. Well, hello and welcome to episode 14 of Ros Jones' Bold Business Bits podcast show. Today I'm joined by my guest Paula Grizzard of Women in Business Network. Hear how she went from International Economic Development Management Consultant to the owner of the Yorkshire Women in Business Network franchise. She's a great networking coach, continually evolving her business to produce more value for her members. And what do you think about her advice to women, which is to think big and be ambitious? Listen on and enjoy our show. Hello and welcome to Paula Grizzard of Women in Business Network Yorkshire. Hello, Paula.
Hi, Ross. Lovely to be here.
Thanks so much for coming over. Paula, tell me about Women in Business Network.
Women in Business Network is a national network of business women who meet regularly every month over lunch, because everybody needs lunch, and often we don't bother to have lunch because we're so busy, with their business hats on, ready to work together, collaborate, and pass business between them. It's a way of women getting together, meeting their peers, and hopefully gaining business connections, which in time will lead to business. That's the formula.
Yeah, brilliant. Why does it have to be women only? Is there any benefit of having a women-only network?
I think women, from my experience, and I come from a world in which I worked previously where there weren't a great many women, I find that the women I meet through the network do want, need, crave their own business space. And that's primarily because a number of them, like me, have worked in non-traditional areas where perhaps they have struggled to have their voices heard. And they want to come to a network where they can talk to like-minded women who are credible, who have perhaps been where they are now, but are perhaps a little bit further forward, can provide peer support. And they're comfortable because they can talk about issues that relate very specifically to women. For example, many women are still the main carers in their family, even in, where we are in the 21st century. It still seems to be the case. Yeah. Not just childcare, elder care is massive, as many of us have parents still alive as we grow into our 50s and sometimes beyond that. So the women in our network who are very like-minded across the country where there is a network group do get a great deal of succour, really, support through the network. And it's not just often about business, it is more broadly about peer support.
Yeah, and building relationships.
Building relationships, and I think the kind of conversations that are they're at the side of the meetings, if you like, before and after the meetings, are often about some of the issues that are very pertinent to women, not just business issues, but life issues. And you just don't get that in a more mixed networking environment.
Yeah, no, I actually agree. I agree with that. I go to both women-only networking events and mixed. And I do, and there is a difference. There's pros and cons, I guess, of each, but there is definitely a marked difference in the women only, and it does feel very supportive.
And I think, I mean, I too go to other networks, and I go to other events for my own personal development. And yes, the vibe is very, very different. Yeah. I'm not saying one needs both. You don't just need one or the other. And I do very strongly feel that conversations, the kind of conversation I've just said, is very important to women. It should actually include men.
Absolutely. Yes, it should.
Shouldn't exclude men. Those conversations about equality, about inclusivity and about support should, of course, include men as well. But that space currently I think is required by many, many women. Not all women, but many women.
Yeah. And so how long is it since you bought this franchise?
So I bought the franchise almost exactly 5 years ago, 5th of June.
Okay.
I signed the contract for Yorkshire. At that point, Women in Business Network was very southeast and London focused. They were very keen, headquartered in Hertfordshire, very keen to grow the model outside of that area. They were already starting to move up the country, so they were in the East Midlands just, and were very keen to move north. So I had not heard of a Women in Business Network. Somebody told me about it. I had always done a lot of networking in terms of my previous life, my previous role, and went along to sample in the East Midlands what a meeting was like, and I was blown away by it because I had never experienced structured networking, which is what we offer, which is very different from the more conventional networking of coming to a meeting, perhaps hearing an inspirational speaker, meeting a small number of people, grabbing their business cards and then going. That's again is very valuable, and I still do that, but different from the offering for the business network. I loved it, loved what I saw, and that sold me, and that's why I bought the franchise, because I thought it was bringing something different to Yorkshire for women.
Yeah. There's a few groups now, aren't there? How many do you have in Yorkshire?
Currently we have 10 groups.
Wow, okay.
We are very much into consolidating those groups to make sure they are all, buzzy, workable, strong business groups. Yorkshire is an interesting proposition because it's such a massive area and hugely different. I mean, West Yorkshire is massively different from North Yorkshire, which is very different from South Yorkshire.
And East Yorkshire.
And East Yorkshire is a different proposition again. In all honesty, some places work better than others. Having initially opened a large number of groups, a bit like the supermarket model, you try out lots of different places, and then the better, stronger ones carry the least strong ones, and then eventually you have to make a decision to say, okay, where does our model work best? Who gets us best? Because the model is not for everybody. We really are best suited to not necessarily a startup business, but businesses who have been going a little while and who understand networking and the value of networking as a marketing tool and have the money to pay for that because we're membership. So you have to have a certain maturity in your thinking as a business to get that. So currently we have 10 groups and always looking at how best to develop those groups and provide best value for our members.
What's your plans then? Is it continue growing, or is it to buy another territory? I don't know.
Not to buy another territory, but to keep adding value to the groups that we have. And the spin-offs, if you like, we've developed a range of spin-offs. And they really came about because we started to look at the kind of sectors that were represented within our groups. We have a lot of finance companies in a number of our groups, and not many property companies within our groups. We started to look at the makeup of the different groups and the different businesses, and decided that what we would establish was a series of what we call Women in events. So we started with women in property, then women in finance. We're now doing women in HR, recruitment, coaching. We're going to be doing women in law. These are all obviously sector-specific events where we bring together professionals, or female professionals and leaders within those sectors together to enable them to meet off-piste, if you like, in a more relaxed networking environment with a chance to learn some top tips from somebody who has a good perspective on the sector. So, for example, last week we ran our latest Women in Property at a property company over in Knaresborough, and we had two great presentations. One was from the CIOB. Please don't ask me what I'm trying to think. It's just come out of my memory, but it's an industry-specific body which gave us a great perspective on what's happening within the property market nationally and the construction sector specifically, which was very, very interesting for the people there. And then the company that hosted the event, called Ilke Homes, is a company that builds residential homes using modular techniques. And this really is disrupting the market.
Yes,
and it's truly innovative, very quick and less expensive way of building, and a good way of increasing the number of homes that can be built that are affordable homes. So it was very interesting for the 60 people who came to that to learn something about the innovation, but also to see that in the context of the marketplace at the moment. And that's what we're trying to achieve with these Women In events. A chance to hear something that's important that you can take away in terms of news and interesting ideas, but at the same time network with investors, developers, architects, planners, interior designers, the whole gambit of that sector. And we want to do more and more of these kinds of events. Excellent. So that's a spin-off, if you like.
So, and where do you get your ideas from? Is it from headquarters, or you come up with them yourself in the middle of the night?
Myself in the middle of the night.
Yes,
the short answer.
Yes. Well, what's your what would you say is has been your biggest challenge in setting up this, in developing the franchise in Yorkshire?
It is the diversity of the region, the diversity of the businesses, and the simple fact business wants different things in different places. Excuse me. So if you take, for example, Leeds, and the truth of the matter in our region is that Leeds is the engine of the region, whether we like it or not. Some of us do not like that fact, but it is the truth. You know, in Leeds, we could open group after group in Leeds, and the demand would be there, and there would be the kind of maturity of businesses that I mentioned. We'd be very happy to pay a membership network, which is what we are. In other places, there is less of that dynamic, where people don't perhaps feel that they would want to pay for a membership network, but would be happy just to come along to a network and pop in and pop out of that network as and when. And that's that again is a valid offering, but it's not our offering. Our offering is much more a business club, if you like, approach. So people join and they commit to work together, do business together, and support one another. And it's single category, so it's one solicitor, one architect, one accountant, etc. And that is a different model, and it's not a model for everybody. So the challenge has been really in that the spread betting approach that I mentioned, not every one of those comes off. So we're now at the stage of understanding that better, understanding where we work best, and understanding where the competition is, because networking is a very, very crowded market. You know, we work better in some places than others. And that's the reality. And it's learning that reality. And that takes a bit of time.
So tell us a bit about what you were doing. You alluded to something that you did before you bought the franchise. What were you doing before the franchise? What made you buy it?
For 25 years, I was a management consultant, initially on my own, and then set up my own practice over time, and ended up with 16 people working for me at my practice in Leeds. Most of our work, a lot of our work was international. So we worked primarily in Central and Eastern Europe. And our main client for that work was the Government Department for International Development.
Right.
So we were commissioned to work in Hungary over many years, and Ukraine, Poland, Romania, Bosnia.
Doing what?
Poland, a range of different activities. In Hungary, it was mainly working with the Hungarian government, largely the employment department, and that was in the run-up to Hungary joining the European Union in 2004, which was the largest intake of countries in Central Europe. at that time joining the European Union. And we supported the employment department in a whole range of activities. We trained their civil servants in quality assurance techniques, because Hungary would be the recipient of large amounts of money from the European Union.
Right, okay.
It was learning how to distribute that money in terms of employment projects to businesses, the kinds of systems and procedures that would be needed, how to do that. We had large numbers of civil servants coming to the UK, which we brought over on study visits to look at sharing practice on projects here that they could look at in terms of, again, systems, procedures, community engagement.
Right.
Unemployment was still a recent phenomena in that country, as in many countries in Central Eastern Europe and former Soviet Union, because obviously former times of theirs, there was no unemployment. Everybody had a job. Yeah. There may not have been work, but everybody had a job to do. So that whole concept was still at that time in the early part of this century was still fairly new. We brought large numbers of civil servants across to look at employment projects in the UK. We did the same in Romania.
So what happened? Well. Did you just get fed up, or did you just sell it, or what happened to?
So when the 2008-9 crash came in the UK, a large proportion of our work at that time was working with the department, Communities Department, Department for Communities and Local Government. UK government department, and also at that time a large part of our work was working with local authorities and with local strategic partnerships and various development agencies. My particular background is economic development, and the work that we got was very much in that sphere. So, for example, I personally was a part of a team of government advisors working with Department for Communities and Local Government. So I would be sent to, for example, Bristol or Coventry or wherever in the country and told to work with the head of economic development in terms of their strategy, which the government considered to be a failing strategy on economic development. So I would be looking at their strategy and working out with them where it was failing and what they could do to turn it round. So all that work in 2008-9 stopped, and I realised, obviously, that the writing was on the wall for people doing the kind of consultancy that my company was doing. So over time, I downsized the business till it got to me and one other person, and I still did consultancy directly commissioned by a small number of clients that I was working with. And then I decided that it was time to do something different. So I started looking around, keeping those clients, but looking around for something new and some new challenges. And one of my clients had heard that this organisation, Women in Business, she had a connection with a business in London and had heard through this female-owned business in London about this network and the fact that they wanted to move north but didn't at that point have any connectivity, any connections. And I was put in touch with the organisation, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it's meant to be.
Meant to be.
Yeah, fantastic. What a great story. Yeah. So in terms of your own development, I guess, and because you had that business, the consultancy business, and now what would you call yourself now?
Good question. Very, very good question.
Facilitator.
So I've always done, as part of my management consultancy, always for many years done board away days and a lot of facilitation work generally, and mentoring as well. Done a lot of mentoring with senior people, private and public sector. At the time, not always labelled mentoring or coaching, but I realised that that's what I did. So I guess my business is in a state of evolving as we speak today, 31st of May, and I'm moving into a different brand, which is She Business UK. Websites in preparation at the moment. Hopefully we'll be ready by...
Is that national or is that your own?
That is national. That is
Okay,
mine.
right, okay.
That is my own brand. And UK to represent, that is beyond Yorkshire. Women in Business Network will be a part of that brand.
Okay.
An offer within the wider brand. The wider brand will be a platform for business events, primarily targeted at women. So we do anyway have what we call Women in Business Summit each year. This year it's in November. Last year it was in November. That's growing as an event. As a result of that and the women in events I mentioned, we've had people come to us and say, well, can you run that for us? Can you run that for us? And so that's where I think the growth of my business is going to be. So we're going to be putting a lot of emphasis on She Business. And that will be, I hope, a support for women in business as well. Women in business will be something that we offer as part of the wider She Business. And one thing that I hope will add some value, for example, blogs. We will be asking, and indeed you, I'm hoping, separate conversation to have with you about you doing a blog for our new platform. And I want to offer that as an added value to some of our members who I think would be a great win for both, great for She Business and hopefully for their own business to be able to blog on this new platform.
Great idea.
Business.
Absolutely great idea. Fantastic. Okay, so if you were giving one piece of advice to a woman just thinking about starting up her own business now, what would that be?
When I started up in business, I think I was quite risk averse. My business is still an interesting business, the consultancy business, because it's the kind of business where you have a day rate and you can charge quite a lot as a day rate. So it's not a typical business, not a business perhaps where you're making something or you've designed an app or whatever. It's a different kind of business. So I was able to earn quite a lot and then look at the business and decide, right, I'm actually really good at selling and getting the contracts in. Now I need a lot of people or a number of people to actually deliver those contracts. But looking back, I could have built a bigger business had I thought bigger and been more ambitious. My advice to a me starting out in business or another starting out in business is think big. Do not think small. When I look at the women within our network, I see a lot of women who think just like I did, small, not at the outset, not big. My advice is think big, be ambitious, think about your business plan and where you might need to have somebody invest alongside, put money in, whether it be the bank or any other form of investor, maybe not now, but at some point. And always remember this, it's other people that make money for you. If you're in the business all the time, doing the business, you'll only ever be a lifestyle business, which might suit you at this or one, not looking at Ros at the moment, but it may not be Ros, thinking more widely. That might suit your personal circumstances if you've got young children or whatever. But if you've got a great business that you could grow, do think about the growth. Don't be risk averse and be ambitious.
Excellent advice. And get a business growth coach. How about that?
Especially if they're out.
Paul, it's been fantastic to have you on our show today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Paula spoke about the time it takes to really understand the reality of your market. And the truth is, I see so many business owners plunge straight into business and marketing their business without taking the time to research and study who your target market is, or target markets, because it may be that you have more than one. It's very likely that you'll have more than one target market. There are 3 key parts to any marketing campaign. You've got your target, so who it is you're marketing to, your offer, and the copy, the content of your marketing campaign. Target is by far the most important, because how will you know which marketing medium to use if you're not really clear about who you're marketing to? For instance, I see so many people rushing out to learn digital marketing. But if your target market doesn't own a computer, then there's not much point in doing digital marketing. If they don't read a newspaper, there's not much point doing a newspaper advert, and so on. So we need to get really clear about who it is that we'll be marketing to. Think about how old they are. Are they men or women? Where do they live? What kind of shops do they go to? What kind of car do they own? What are their hobbies? Where do they go on holiday? Getting really clear about those kind of details makes it much more easy to decide the kind of marketing that you're going to use. So who is your ideal customer now? Do you have a favourite customer that you can clone and ask where they go? Where else do they do business? Do they go to a gym? Do they have an accountant? So all of these kind of businesses that you could use in your marketing campaign. Where would you go to find more people like your ideal customer? So this is the stuff to think about. Having absolute clarity on who your target market is makes it much easier to market to. If you'd like to know more information about how I might be able to help you, please look at my businesscoachingyorkshire.co.uk website, get in touch and join me again for next week's podcast when I'll be speaking with another phenomenal female business boss. Thanks for listening. This has been your Ross Jones Bold Business Bits podcast show. If you'd like any further information about anything we've discussed today, please just get in touch. Go to businesscoachingyorkshire.co.uk. Please join me again next week when I'll be speaking with another phenomenal female business boss with bold business bits. And remember to subscribe to my show. Thanks for listening.